ألف باء تاء ثاء جيم حاء خاء دال ذال راء زاي سين شين صاد ضاد طاء ظاء عين غين فاء قاف كاف لام ميم نون هاء واو ياء باء تاء ثاء جاء حاء خاء داء ذاء راء زاء ساء شاء صاء ضاء طاء ظاء عاء غاء فاء قاء كاء لاء ماء ناء هاء واء ياء إي بي تي ثي جي حي خي دي ذي ري زي سي شي صي ضي طي ضي عي غي في قي كي لي مي ني هي وي يي أو بو تو ثو جو حو خو دو ذو رو زو سو شو صو ضو طو ضو عو غو فو قو كو لو مو نو هو وو يو.
Okay, Bismillah. Discussion is about vowels in the Arabic language. Unlike English, where vowels are made from the letters of the alphabet, in Arabic we have three distinct signs for vowels, and they are on the left hand side: Dhamma, Fatha and Kasra. So we have here a noon. So the way we would write a Dhamma is as follows. It's like a small wow, and it has the sound of U. So the way you pronounce this is Nu. Nu. Secondly, we have the Fatha. Now with Fatha, it's written as a line on top of the letter, and it has the sound of A. That would be Na. Na. Finally, we have the Kasra. With the kasra, it's similar to a fatha, but it's written on the bottom of the letter. And it has a E sound. So that would be pronounced as ni. Now, it's a good idea to memorize these three names, Dhamma, Fatha, and Kasra, which will help you through your studies in Arabic. So let's do an example of a word that has these three vowels in the word. So let's try to pronounce this word. So we have this is a kaf, so it has a k sound, and on top of it is a dhamma, so there's an u sound. So that would be ku. Ku. Then we have the ta with a kasra, so that would be ti. So ku ti. And then we have the ba with a fatha on top. And remember, the fatha has an a sound, so that would be ba. So it would be ku ti ba. Kutiba. Kutiba. Which means it was prescribed. So that's a brief explanation of vowels. Unlike English, in English we have 5 vowels, A, E, I, O, U. In Arabic we only have 3, and they are what is known as fatha, dhamma, and kasra. So let's first of all just understand how they're written. So in front of us we have the letter fa, and when we add vowels in Arabic, it's different to English. We don't add them after the letter. We add it on top of the letter. So fatha will be written as follows. It's written with a line on top, like that. Al-dhamma will be as follows. It's like a small wow. And we have the kasra, which is like a fatha, but on the bottom. So let's assume that this is the line where we write. The fatha would be on top of the letter. Dhamma would be on top as well. And kasra would be on the bottom. So fatha, dhamma, kasra. So that's just the terminology, and inshallah we'll find out how they're actually pronounced. So we have the first harakat, which is fatha. Now, for example, when we say the word cat, notice the a sound. It's a sound. Cat. That's the same sound of a fatha. Now, we have here, I've transliterated cat into Arabic. So we have the kaf here, so it makes the same sound, the k sound. And then we have the ta, which is equivalent to the t in English. So this says cat. So notice the vowel is on top, not after it, as in cat. And obviously in English we write from left to right, while in Arabic we write from right to left. So in English, when we read a word, we read it this way. In Arabic, it's actually upwards, like that. So we read the first letter and what harakat it has first, the second letter, what harakat it has, and so on. Now, similarly, back, the word back, so it's the same sound, back. Now, just one thing to note is, when we say this sound, the sound, you'll notice your mouth is open, wide. Now let's just practice. We have here a word in Arabic. So to pronounce this, we have 3 letters here. We have the jim, which has the j sound. Like, for example, the word jeep or jog. or Jupiter. So J, it's a J sound, and there's a fatha there. So this will be pronounced as Ja. Then we have the lam here. It's equivalent to the letter L in English, like the word look. To pronounce the lam with the fatha, it's la. So Ja, la. And then finally we have the sin. That's equivalent to the S sound in English. So this will be sa. So ja, la, sa. Jalasa. So jalasa means he sat. And notice we don't elongate. There's no elongation of the a sound. So we don't say ah. Like in, for example, when we say the word car. Car. It's car. It's not car. So this will be one syllable. That's another syllable. And that's another syllable. So there's three syllables. Ja, la, sa. Now here, when we say car, there's an elongation. That's written differently, and we'll explain that later on, inshallah. Just to note, it's a quick sound. So just ja, la, sa. Jalasa. Not jalasa or jalasa. No, jalasa. There's no elongation. Okay, we've reached the dhamma now. So it's a small letter wow. What letter does a dhamma make? It's like the word book. Although there's two letters, both of the there's two O's. Although there's two letters here, it's pronounced like a dhamma. Unlike, for example, the word choose. So when we say choose, there's an elongation there. We say choose, choose. We don't say choose. It's not choose. It's not choose. It's choose. So although in English they can actually sound differently, even though they're written the same way, they sound differently. In Arabic we don't have this. So the way it's written is the way it's pronounced. To transliterate this in Arabic would be the following. Here. So this is the ba, and we have the dhamma. And you'll see it's going like this. That's just the way it's written. It doesn't really matter if it's like that or like this. It's the same thing. So just one point note there. That's just the script. That's the way the script is. So that's a ba with a dhamma. Notice when I say dhamma, it's very important. Some people actually they don't say it with a dad. They say it with a dal. So they say dhamma. It's not dhamma. It's dhamma. Maybe non-Arabs will find this hard to pronounce, but that's inshallah as you progress in your Arabic studies, and when you actually learn the rules of pronunciation, you will improve on that, inshallah. We have here the ba with a dhamma, followed by the kaf, which has the K sound. So here it's pronounced as book. This letter alone with the dhamma would be bu. Bu. So book. Similarly, we have the word in English put. It's put. So there's a u sound. That represents the sound that a dhamma makes. Put. Now I didn't transliterate that put because actually there's no P sound in classical Arabic. Those in Iraq, for example, they actually use the P sound, but actually it's not in the original in classical Arabic. So usually when you pronounce something with a P, it's represented by the ba. Usually. Now let's just practice this. We have a word composed of 3 letters. Both the first 2 letters are actually with a dhamma. There's a sin. So we have, if we break this up, there's a sin with a dhamma. Then there's a ba with a dhamma. and there's the lam. So to pronounce this has a S sound. So su, bu, and this is the lam, like the letter L. So subul, subul. Now I'm not pronouncing deliberately. I'm deliberately not pronouncing the last haraka on this letter, because when we start going to Arabic grammar, we'll find out that this actually changes. It's the same word. It will be the same word, but the last letter, the haraka or the vowel on the last letter will change depending on the word's function in the sentence. Subul means paths. And that's the plural of the word sabil. Sabil is a path, and this is the plural, paths. Let's get to the kasra. The kasra, as we showed you, is a line at the bottom of the letter, and the sound it has is like the word sit. So it's like the I in the word sit. So it's a E sound, E. So for example, if I transliterate that into Arabic, it's like that. So the sin with the kasra, si, and that's the ta, so sit, sit. So for example, we have the following word. It's ma, that's a fatha, so ma, and then the lam, li, and then the kaf, ki, so maliki, maliki. Malik means king, so let me just write this, a king. A, I, U, ba, bi, bu, ta, ti, tu, tha, fi, thu, ja, ji, ju, ha, hi, hu, kha, khi, khu, da, di, du, tha, vi, thu, ra, ri, ru, za, zi, zu, sa, si, su, sha, shi, shu, sa, si, su, da, di, du, ta, ti, tu, tha, vi, thu, a, i, u, gha, ghi, ru, fa, fi, fu, qa, qi, qu, ka, ki, ku, la, li, lu, ma, mi, mu, na, ni, nu, ha, hi, hu, wa, wi, wu, ya, yi, you. Okay, in this lesson we're going to be talking about the lack of a vowel, which in Arabic is known as sukoon. Now here we have letter fa. I want to show you how sukoon is written. Now when we actually represent no vowels, we don't just leave the letter without any marks. Sukoon actually is represented by either like a small circle on top, or with this mark here. So you will find both used. Now, let's look at some examples. So if you remember the last video, we went through these words, and I transliterated the words into Arabic. That's cat, both in Arabic and English. Now here, we have a haraka there with the kaf, and then notice there's actually a stop on the letter T. So we say cat. So the T doesn't have any vowel associated with it. It's actually just a stop on the T. So in this case, we would actually put a sukoon there. Cat. if we give it actually a mark, for example, the fatha, it'd be kata or katu or kati. Similarly, the word back. So it's back. So there's a sukoon there as well. And we have the word book. Same thing. Book is sukoon there. Now I also want to mention, so here the sentence reads خرج الرجل من البيت, and you stop there. Now notice the last letter has a kasra. When we actually stop, we give it a sukoon. There's no sukoon that's written down, but we pronounce it as if there was a sukoon. For example, in the Quran, this is in Surah Fatiha, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. It's mustaqima. There's a fatha there, but we don't pronounce that fatha when we stop. So we have this verse from the Quran, and I want to highlight something based on the script that is used in the famous Saudi print of the Quran. With this particular script, it uses this sign for sukoon. So that says qul. That's a command. It means to say. Qul. So it's written like that. Then we have here another sukoon, and there's another sukoon there. Now, one thing to note, if you go a bit further on, we find this. Remember we said that sukoon can also be represented by this sign here, by this circle. This circle in the Mus'haf is not a sukoon. It doesn't represent a sukoon. And you actually find two types of these circles. One of them is like a normal circle, and one of them is more like a long circle, like that. Both of these are used in the Mus'haf to represent tajweed rules. Now, outside of the Quran, you'll find that a sukoon can be represented by an O. So inshallah, in this lesson, we're going to be speaking about the long vowel. In Arabic, it's called med, which also means elongation. Now in English, we have the following words. The word bad. Notice the elongation of the A sound. We don't say bed, we say bad. Similarly, we have the word feet. We don't say fit, we say feet. There's an elongation of the E sound. And also, the word food. So we don't say food, we say food. So there's the elongation of the U sound. Food, not food. Now if I transliterate this into Arabic, I get the following. So we have bad, feet, and food. In the first example, bad, it's the A sound that's being elongated. And that's denoted by this fatha here, which has the A sound, followed by the alif. And that's where we get the A sound, the elongation there, the long vowel. Similarly, here we have a kasra, and then following it is the ya. So it's a E sound. And finally, we have here a dhamma, followed by the waw. So it's a U sound. So we'll come to know actually that the long vowels are created in these three following ways, which are having a fatha, followed by the alif, a kasra, followed by a ya, and a dhamma, followed by a waw. So they represent the three long vowels. So inshallah we'll go through some words and to see how the long vowels are pronounced. So here are some words. First one here is qala. Notice the elongation of the A sound. Qala. Not qala, qala. So we have the fatha on the qaf, followed by the alif. Next word is jihad. So we have here ji, that's the first syllable, and then had, jihad. So you notice here we have a fatha on the ha followed by the alif, and that gives the elongation of the a sound. Next word, Ibrahim. So here, ra. Notice here the ra fatha followed by the alif. Once again, it's a long vowel. Ibra. Not Ibra. Ibra. Ibra and then him. Ibrahim. Here the ha has a kasra followed by the ya. So here there's the elongation of the e sound. It's he. Him. Ibrahim. Similarly, here we have Kareem. Now Kareem is actually a adjective that means one who's generous. So here we have the ra, kasra, followed by the ya. This is the ya here. So Kareem, not Karim. Next word, Maghdoob. So Maghdoob here has a dhamma on the dad, followed by the wow. So it's an elongation sound. So it's a oo sound. So it's Maghdoob. And finally, here, Qubur. Qubur. So there's the oo sound again. They have a ba with the dhamma followed by the wow. So you can see how the long vowel is formed there. Now there is another mad, which is when two hamzas come together. But I actually thought that it would be more appropriate to mention that and when we get to the introduction to grammar, Arabic grammar. Now, just finally, I want to translate these words. So we have qala means he said. Jihad denotes the action of struggling and exerting effort. Ibrahim is the Arabic name for Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him. And as we said, Kareem means one who's generous. Maghdoob denotes somebody who is the object of anger. So one who anger is directed towards. And finally we have the word qubur. Qubur is the plural of the word qabr, which means grave. So qubur means graves. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Bismillah. So this lesson we're going to speak about the double letter. When we have two letters that are the same joined together. Now this joining is called shadda, and it means to join with strength. So if we take the word shadda, what Arabs use for the sign of shadda is the following. It's just that part of the word shadda, which is that. So if we want to double this letter, what we do is we add the shadda. That's it there. Now, a point to note is that the shadda will always have a vowel mark accompanied with it. Either the fatha, the dhamma, or the kasra. So, for example, we have here three scenes with a shadda and the three different harakat. So, as you can see, the shadda with a dhamma, the shadda with a kasra, and the shadda with a fatha. One point, the kasra here is usually written under the shadda, or it can actually be written underneath the letter itself. So the actual kasra can go down here as well. But the shadda stays there. The shadda will never be on the bottom. Another point is the shadda can go on any letter, except for the hamza or the alif. So any other letter can accept a shadda. Now let's dissect the shadda on top of these layers. So we said that the shadda represents a doubling of the letter. So here, there's two scenes, because the shadda is there. So there's one scene, followed by another scene. Now the first scene will always have a sukoon. And then the second scene will have the actual harakah. Now let's put, for example, a letter before it, because we know that a word cannot start with a sukoon. You can't have a letter with a sukoon starting off a word. So let's put the ra, for example. So to pronounce this, we would say resu. Resu. Notice how I give the double letter. Resu. Resu. Now similarly, this is two scenes as well. The sukun is on the first, followed by the kasra on the second. So if you put the ra once again, it would pronounce as Rassi. Rassi. Notice how I give emphasis to the scene. It's the doubling of the letter. Not Resi, Rassi. And similarly, the scene with the shadda and fatha is a scene, another scene. There's a sukun there, and there's a fatha there. So we put the ra, for example. Actually, let's change the letter. Let's put the meme. So the meme would be joined to it, and a fatha here. And I assumed that these were fathas as well with the ra as well. So that's why it was rassi and rassu. So here it's massa. This is actually a verb. Massa means to touch. Now, how this verb is actually written is the following. It's a meme followed by a sin, and there's a shadda, and it's massa. So a double letter will not be represented in this way. It will be done in this particular way with the shadda. Now, a letter that has a shadda can never start a sentence, as we said. That's why I put a letter that has a haraka on it. So let's put the fathas on those. So notice I put those huruf, those letters, in front, because there's no word that starts with a sin, with a sukun, or any letter that has a sukun. Let's look at some words with the shadda. So here we have 3 words, actually 4 words, because iyaka actually is made up of 2 different words. We have a particle and a pronoun. So how do we pronounce this? Iyaka. Notice the ya gets a double vowel because of the shadda there. Iyaka. It's not iyaka. Iyaka. Also here, al-hajju. It's not al-hajju, it's al-hajju. And here, Rabbi. So it's Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. There's a shadda there. It's not Rabbi. So if I want to dissect this, it would be the ra followed by 2 bas. There's the fatha there. The first ba takes a sukun, and the second takes a kasra. So it's Rabbi. So you notice actually that a shadda will always give a new syllable to the word, because the new syllable starts here. It's in between the first and the second letter that has the shadda. So that's briefly about the shadda. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Now this is a pronunciation exercise from what we learned so far. So the first one is, it's ba-nu. Banu. Next one is bu and nu. So it's bunu. Next one we see has a long vowel. So it's bana. Not bana, bana. Next one, there's sukun there on the vowel, so it's bawna. Bawna. Next one is a long vowel as well. It's the u sound, so it's boona. Boona. The next is bayna. Then we have beena. This is a long vowel. Beena. And finally, it's bayyana. So there's a shadda there. So it can actually be written as follows. The ba, then the ya, followed by another ya, and then finally the noon. So, bay, ya, na. So when there's a shadda, there's a double letter. The first letter has a sukun, and the second has the harakah that it has, which is here the fatha. So, bayyana. Now let's go to the 5 words below. We'll pronounce it and give you the meaning. So the first word is fi. So you notice there's the elongation, the long vowel. Fi means in, and that in could either be physical or abstract. So if we say fil bayt, in the house, or it could be abstract. For example, if I say fi ra'yi, which means in my opinion. Okay, next we have, and you notice here the long vowel as well, rana. And rana is a verb which means to cover in dirt or rust. Next word is kayfa. Kayfa. Kayfa means how. So for example, if you meet somebody and say, kayfa haluka, how are you? Next word, huda. Now this is not actually a ya, it's an alif. It's called an alif maqsura, and it's exactly like an alif, the way it's pronounced. It's like a ya, without the 2 dots. So we say huda. There's the elongation as well, because the fatha followed by an alif. If this wasn't there, it will be huda. But huda with the alif. Finally, we have the verb kassara, which means to smash something into many pieces. It's an intensive form. With verbs, when we have the shadda, the verb involves intensity. And you can actually feel it the way it's pronounced. Kassara instead of kassara. So once again, there's the kaf, followed by 2 scenes, and then the ra. So kas, skune, sara. Kassara, not kasara. So it's very important with the shadda to give it the double sound. And sometimes people might be a bit too hasty and not give that double letter. My best advice to you is maybe go through the Quran and try to read it and have, for example, a recording of it, a clear recording, and see if you pronounce it exactly the same way. I must warn you, there are many rules that might cause you to be a bit confused. And you might ask, why is it recited in this way? It should be this way. But usually, most words in the Quran will be recited the way that they are written. So in this lesson, we're going to speak about the open and closed ta. So this is the open ta, and this is the closed ta. So it's quite obvious why they're called that, because of their shape. Now there are some differences. The first one is in which words they are found. So the open ta is used anywhere, meaning in any position of the word, and in any word. So either in the noun, or a verb, or a particle. So it's not restricted to any type of word in the Arabic language. While the ta marbota, the closed ta, only occurs at the end of a word, and only in nouns. So let's look at some examples of this, inshallah. So here we have the word bayt, baytun, this is the tanween, and this is an open ta. We also have the word, for example, tamrun, which means dates. So notice here the open ta at the beginning of a word. We also have, for example, a verb here, mata, which means he died. And ta can also occur alone as a particle. And one of its usages is particle of swearing an oath. Now with the ta marbota, the closed ta, we have the following words. So you notice here the ta marbota at the end of the word. And notice one thing about the ta marbota. The way it's written is exactly the same as a ha. So if you remember, the ha can be written in 2 ways. At the end, if for example it doesn't join to the second last letter, it will be written on its own like this. Or if it's connected to the second last letter, it's written like this. Now the difference between the ha and the ta marbota is just the 2 dots at the top. So they're both ta marbutas now. Now the ha also has the medial form. If you remember the medial form, which is that. Now we said that the ta marbuta can never be in the middle of a word. It's always at the end. So this, you won't find a ta marbuta like that. That doesn't occur. Here the word is Medina and Khadija. Notice one thing, I didn't mention the ta. I actually pronounced the ta marbuta as a ha. Medina, Khadija. Now if I stop on the ta marbuta, it's actually pronounced as a ha in both cases. So here Medina means a city, and Khadija is a name of a female. The ta marbuta also is a sign of femininity. So you find this ta marbuta in a number of female words. So that's another point about the ta marbuta. And thirdly, if you actually pronounce the last letter with the harakah, so for example, say one say Khadija tu. Notice Khadija tu. We pronounce the ta. If we stop at the ta, Khadija, it's a ha. Medina or Madinatun, if we put the tanween. Just a point there, female names don't get a tanween. They only get one dhamma or one fatha. They don't take a kasra. But we'll speak about this, inshallah, later on. You don't need to know that at this stage. So the complete lesson, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Bismillah. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to speak about tanween. Now what tanween is, it's the double fatha, the double kasra, or the double dhamma at the end of a word. And in fact, what tanween is the addition of a noon sound, the letter noon. In English, it's also called noonation. So you find that in some English books. And that's used synonymously with tanween. Now, just a point with how it's written. With the fatha and kasra, it's pretty straightforward. You just put one on top of the other. With the dhamma, the two dhammas, it could be written as this. So you have two dhammas together. It could also be written as the following mark. You'll find this in some scripts, as well as you have one dhamma and that. So that's another way that could be written. So all these represent two dhammas together. Now, here we have the word qalam. Qalam means pen. Now, for example, if we put one dhamma, it will be qalamu. If we put two dhammas, it will be pronounced as qalamun. Qalamun. So notice the noon sound at the end. It's pronounced as the following. It's the dhamma at the end, followed by, let's take this off, because we're going to put a noon at the end. A noon. With a sukoon. So, qalamun. That's how it's pronounced, and this is how it's written. So you never write a tanween like this. Now, what does tanween indicate? The main thing it indicates is indefiniteness. So here, qalamun would be a pen. So here we have the word rajul, which means man. Now, if we want to say a man, we put tanween. Either the two dhammas, the two fathas, or the two kasras. So either rajulun, rajulan, or rajulin. They all indicate a man. So the main usage of tanween is indefiniteness. So it's giving the sound of a noon with a sukoon at the end of the word. Now let's go through some words with tanween. Okay, we have these four words. So the first one is sarirun. So you see the tanween here. Next one is mawzatun. Third one, ajalatun. And lastly, ta'iratun. So notice the un sound at the end. And we can also put the two fathas and the two kasras also. So for example here sarir could be, let's take this off, it could be sariran or saririn. Now one thing to note, with the two fathas, in most words you'd put an extra alif. So let's just write sarir out. It'll be sariran. So this alif is put with the two fathas only. The two dhammas and the two kasras don't get this. There's an exception. For example, the ta marbuta. See these three words, they all end in a ta marbuta, the closed ta. So this is a ta, but it's a closed ta, as opposed to the open ta. When a word ends with ta marbuta, even when it gets two fathas, it doesn't have an alif. So for example, ajalatun, let's write it, it'll be ajala 10. Mawzatun, if we want to make it two fathas, would be Mawza 10. Now, another point to note, most masculine proper nouns will have a tanween, yet they are still definite. So any proper name, for example, Muhammad, will be Muhammadun, Muhammadan, Muhammadin. So they have tanween, but they're definite. With all other nouns, the tanween will indicate indefiniteness. Finally, just the meanings of these words. So sarir with the tanween is a bed. So mawzatun is a banana. Ajalatun is a bicycle. And ta'iratun is a plane. That completes the lesson. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Okay, inshallah we're going to speak about definiteness. So we have in front of us the word bayt, baytun. So you see the tanween, which indicates indefiniteness. So baytun is a house. Now to make something definite, what we do is we add an alif and lam in front of the word, as you can see there, and we take one of the dhammas away. So instead of the tanween, we have a single dhamma. And similarly, if there was, for example, say tanween with two fathas, then when we make it definite, there will be one fatha. And similarly one kasra, if there was. So, al-baytu, the house, a specific house. So the process to make it definite is to add the alif and lam and to remove the tanween. Now, what is the alif lam? Now in fact, I said here the alif and lam. It's not an alif. This is actually a hamzat al-wasl. So we give it the sign of hamzat al-wasl. And the lam has a sukoon on it. Now knowing that this is a hamzat al-wasl, we know that with hamzat al-wasl, if it starts off a sentence, it's pronounced. So, al-baytu. But if there's something before it, let's say a waw, what happens? It's wal-baytu. So this is not pronounced because it's in the middle of a sentence. Now, for example, in the Quran, we have this in Surah Al-Quraysh. And it says, فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا. And here is al-bayt. Now, there's a kasra there, and there's the al. So it's definite. And here, al-bayt refers to Baytullah, the house of Allah, the Kaaba. Now, here we have the word هذا. So, هذا and al-bayt. So how do we pronounce it? It's هذا البيت. So it's not هذا البيت. You don't pronounce this hamzat al-wasl here. So you go from this alif to this lam. هذا البيت. If it started the sentence, it would be al-bayt. Okay, let's continue on. Now, an important point is that proper nouns are all definite. Proper nouns, as in names of people, of places, of countries, and so on. Now in front of us we have 5 proper names. The first name we have is Muhammad. You notice at the end of it is the tanween, Muhammadun. Even though it has a tanween, it's still definite. And that's the same with, for example, Zayd. It's Zaydun. Tanween as well. They're both masculine names. So with proper nouns, a tanween does not indicate indefiniteness. That's a rule there. Then we have the name Zainabu. Notice here, there's only one dhamma. There's no tanween. Now the question is, why doesn't it have tanween? That's because feminine names actually don't take a tanween. They only have one dhamma. And similarly with the name Mecca, the holy city of Mecca, it's actually a feminine name. And it only takes one dhamma. Now the point is with feminine proper nouns, so it should be feminine proper nouns, they don't accept tanween. With rare exceptions. So there are exceptions to these rules, and we're just learning the basic rule. And all the exceptions will be taught later on as you progress in your studies, inshallah. And finally we have Al-Iraq. Notice a few things. There's the Al here. And there's the Dhamma. Now there are a few things to note about this. So Al-Iraq is the country, Iraq. And that's how it's written in Arabic, Al-Iraq. This Al, Alif Lam, is not a lam of definiteness. Because as we said, proper nouns are always definite. So it's not definite by the fact that it has this Al. It's already definite. It's the name of a country. So this Al is actually part of this word. You won't find the name Iraq. It's always accompanied with this Al. And some proper nouns actually have this Al joined to it. For example, we have the name Al-Abbas. Not Abbas, Al-Abbas, which is a masculine name. This is an extra Al, which occurs in some proper nouns. And it's not the Al that to make a word definite like Al-Bayt. Now, just finally, I want to mention this point, is with the Al of definiteness, that the Hamzah al-Wasl is always pronounced with a fatha. Not a kasra and not a dhamma. So it's always a, al-Bayt, al-Qamar, and so on. It's never ul, it's never il. It's always al. And like this lesson, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Bismillah. Now, in this lesson, we're going to speak about the division of letters as sun letters and moon letters. Huruf shamsiyya and huruf qamariyya. Now, the letters I have that look like a moon, these letters are actually the moon letters. While the ones that have the sun on them are the sun letters. Now, why do we have this division? To demonstrate this, here we have the word Ash-Shams and Al-Qamar. The sun and the moon. That's what they mean. And this is the Al of definiteness that we spoke about in the previous lesson. Now, when you add Al to these, you'll notice a few things. Let's first of all start with Al-Qamar. How do we pronounce this? It's Al-Qamar. So Al-Qamar. So there's a sukoon there on top of the lam. And it's Al-Qamar. There's no issues with that. But when we come to Ash-Shams, there's something that's happening. And this has to do with the articulation point of the lam and the letter following it, which here is the sheen. And to actually find out the articulation point, have a hamza with a fatha followed by the lam. So we say al, with a titha, al. And do the same thing with the sheen. Ash. The actual points of articulation of the lam and the sheen are very close to each other. And because they're very close, what happens is this lam is not pronounced. And what happens instead is the lam is pronounced as a sheen. So there's actually a shadda here. So it's Ash-Shams not al-shams. Because notice when you say al-shams, it's not smooth. Rather than ash-shams, which flows and is nicer to hear. However, with al-qamar, there's no issues with that. And that's because the articulation point of the lam and the qaf are far apart. So the al is where the teeth and the tongue come together, and the qaf, aqq, comes from the throat, which is far from the articulation point of the lam. And because of this distance, it's much smoother to say it, because you're going from one articulation point to one that's further down. So it's al-qamar. However, with lam and the sheen, the lam is here and the sheen is right next to it. Al-shams. Al-shams. It's actually hard on the tongue to say. And then what that means is that these sun letters, the ta, the tha, dal, the ra, zay, and so on, if they come as a first letter of the word, after the al is being added, there'll be a shadda on the letter, and the lam will not be pronounced. And similarly, for example, the alif, ba, jim, ha, kha, and so on, if they actually come after the al of definiteness, they're always pronounced. And the lam is also pronounced as well, with sukoon. Now let's see these words in the Quran. So this is in Surah Ash-Shams, and it says, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. So notice, وَالشَّمْس. This is al of definiteness. This is hamzat al-wasl. It's not pronounced, because there's something before it. Similarly, this lam is not pronounced either, because as we said, this is from the sun letters, and there's a shadda there. So it's wash-shams. Then we have wal-qamari idha talaha. Wal-qamar. So you notice the lam here has a sukoon on it. Now in the Mus'haf, when the lam is not pronounced, it doesn't have any sign on it. It's written, but there's no sukoon. But here it's wal-qamari idha talaha. So the qaf is from huruf al-qamariyah. Now let's take examples of this, inshallah. Here we have the moon letters, and here we have the sun letters. And we have here al-abu, the father. Notice here, al-abu, it's pronounced. Al-babu, the door. Al-jannah, al-himar, al-khubz, and so on. So you see how the lam has the sukoon and it's pronounced in all cases. The huruf shamsiyah, notice here, we have at-tajiru. At-tajiru, there's a shadda there. Al-thawb, the garment. Ad-deek, the rooster. Al-dhahab, the gold. Ar-rajul, the man, and so on. Now, it's good to memorize which letters are the moon letters and which are the sun. It will help initially, but then later on, it will become second nature to you. So my advice is just to practice, and a good way to do this is to listen to a Quran recitation and see how the words are pronounced. Like this lesson, Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.